Thank you, Luladai. Thank you and welcome to all. Thank you so much for joining us today in our series of webinars. So today we will have a very excellent session on basics of exporting and building your export price, whether you are a new company that has not exported before or a company that is already exporting. It will be very useful information here presented by our expert, Mr. Allali. I will be, for those who don't know me, I work at ITC. I'm an agri-food expert, worked on export for many years, Mr. Allali also. So we will do this quite informally and we will record the session. So anything you missed, you can go back to the recording, and also we will share with you the presentation at the end of the training, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation so we can answer any questions you may have and you can share your experience also. So thank you so much, and let me give the floor to Mr. Allali.
Thank you, Frédérine. Thank you, Rolade. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to be with you today to talk about a very important theme, which is basics of exporting, with a special emphasis on pricing, how to build an export price. Let me briefly introduce myself before diving into this important topic. My name is Brahim Allali, and I'm based in Morocco. I returned to Morocco because I was based in Canada before. I was a professor at HEC Montreal for about 15 years. And I am in the consulting business since 1993. Then for more than 30 years, I'm in a consultancy as a consultant in international business, strategy, and marketing. And today, I'll be talking about basics of exporting or export one-on-one. This presentation is going to be structured according to the following outline. In an introduction, I'll be giving some reasons on how to and why to export, what are the reasons that may induce a company to start exporting, to go international at large. I'll be presenting the export process and the steps, and I'll be introducing some logistics pertaining to exporting, and that will be a kind of reminders on the harmonized system, the Incoterms 2020, and the modes of transportation, and export documents that are used in the process of exporting goods. In the second part, I'll be talking about export pricing. I'll be presenting the cost components, and I'll be distinguishing between fixed costs and variable costs, direct and indirect costs, calculation methods, how to calculate the production cost, which is the basis actually for setting an export price. Pricing strategies, then what strategies a company can choose from to set its export prices based on its marketing objectives, whether it wants to occupy the largest part of the market or to select the high-paying customers and so on. And I'll be showing concretely how to build the export price through some examples to show how to do it concretely on the field. I'll be presenting what I call takeaway messages in the conclusion. Then I'll be summarizing some of the most important parts or some important points of this presentation. And there will be a Q&A session at the end of this presentation so that you can ask your questions or make your comments or ask for more details, because we won't have enough time to go in depth in all of the points that we'll be covering in this presentation. In the introduction, then I'll be addressing the question, why export? A lot of people ask themselves this question and say that they don't want to export because of this and that. And more often than not, it turns out those answers turn out to be just actually myths or misconceptions or misinterpretations of what export is about. Then some people say, I don't export because I don't know where to start from, or because exporting is for large companies and I have a small company that cannot afford to go international, or because the export or exporting requires a lot of resources that my company doesn't have. I don't see the point of exporting because I have a product that sells well in the local market. I tried once before and it didn't work. Then I don't see the point in trying again. I don't think my product is exportable, or no one from foreign countries or from abroad has ever been interested in my product. Then I come to the conclusion that my product is not a solution to a problem, need, or desire in those foreign markets. Or I know someone who got into exporting and never got paid. Then there are a lot of risks associated with exporting. Then I'm not taking the decision to export. Actually, when we talk about exporting, we're talking about three kinds of attitudes towards exporting. The first attitude that I call a negative attitude is the attitude of people who say exporting is not for me. Then my company remains domestic. Then I keep selling my products on the domestic market and don't see any usefulness or any point in trying to go on foreign markets. Then the company ends up being a domestic company or a local company. Then it doesn't export. Second attitude is an attitude that I call passive attitude. It's the attitude of people who need a kind of stimulus or stimuli to start exporting. Then stimulus like receiving an unsolicited order from a foreign company, a foreign importer who is interested in their products and who starts asking about how to import it into his or her own country. Then when they receive such an inquiry or such an order, then they tell themselves, okay, it seems that there is an opportunity there that I'm going to try to grasp or try to seize, and they start exporting in a reactive way. Then that's what we call the shotgun exporting, because it's done without any prior preparation, any prior study of the foreign market, of its best practices, what works, what does not work, what we call the do's and don'ts, the plural of do and the plural of don't. Then they don't study the do's and don'ts of foreign markets, and they end up doing a lot of mistakes, committing even what we call blunders, big mistakes on foreign markets. And the third attitude, which is the attitude that we strongly recommend here, is what we call the proactive attitude. And this is the attitude of somebody who does not wait for stimuli to start exporting. Then proactiveness is about making the decision without waiting for any initiative to be taken on foreign markets or from foreign markets, like the unsolicited order I talked about before. Then being proactive means that you are going to prepare yourself and to start looking for opportunities on foreign markets and to study those markets in terms of what works, what does not work, what practices are to be adopted on those markets, what prices are applied on those markets, and so on. Then that's what we call proactiveness. And this is so important that some serious studies have shown that proactive companies, then the companies that start exporting proactively, are at least 5 times more profitable than reactive companies. Then because those companies know about the prices to be applied on foreign markets and apply that price instead of selling at a price that is the domestic market price. They sell to somebody, to a foreign importer, and sometimes it turns out that the price that will be applied on foreign markets is 4 or 5 times higher than the price paid to the exporter. And this implies developing a strategy, an export strategy. And developing an export strategy means that you are going to take everything to make the exporting endeavor and a successful one. And that's what we call the strategic exporting. And actually this training, this online training, takes as an assumption that people would start exporting strategically and not reactively. Okay, then a lot of people ask about the benefits to be that a company can reap from exporting. There are benefits or advantages for countries as well as for companies. For countries, exporting means more foreign currency inflow into the country. It means more job creation. And this is an important concern for all decision makers around the world, to create more jobs. It means enhancing the national image of the country outside. Increased investments, because we need to invest more to produce more and to satisfy the demand outside. Then very important, because it has implications as well on investments, and investments are correlated positively to job creation. That is an advantage that we talked about before. Economic growth and exporting implies growth. Reduced brain drain, because a lot of people would change their mind about going to a foreign country because there are a lot of jobs locally and they don't see the point of taking a lot of risks by immigrating legally or illegally to a foreign country. And this is actually a major concern for our African countries, because I told you that I'm based in an African country myself, in Morocco, and in Morocco, as well as in other African countries, we suffer a lot from this brain drain. Integration into global value chains, then very important, because you will be part of some global value chains, and this would give you more layout or leeway to play an important role in those value chains, etc. There are a lot of other advantages that can be associated with exporting, and that is why all countries in the world are trying to enhance their exports by giving some incentives to companies, to exporting companies. Then for companies, and in addition to those incentives that can be tax incentives, financial incentives, and so on, they can realize some economies of scale by reducing their cost and by improving their competitiveness. They will be diversifying their risks by not putting all the eggs on the same basket, by diversifying the risk between the local market and foreign markets. This exporting would give them international exposure. They will be in contact with other competitors and they will learn from them. They will learn firsthand from performers, from top performers. They will know about new products and new processes that are adopted by those companies and so on, and they can actually adapt them to what they're doing, and they can even reap benefits by applying them to their domestic market in addition to the international market. Greater profitability, because as I said, we can have a product at a price on the local market, and the price on the foreign market can be 3, 4, or 5-fold. Then it will be up to, in one case, I found 7.5 times the price. The price that was applied on the foreign market was 7.5 times higher than the price of the domestic market, and it was about hand-knotted carpets exported by Morocco in the 80s, and those hand-knotted carpets were sold on the foreign market at a price that was 7.5 times higher than the price paid to the Moroccan producer. More opportunities because we may have a narrow local market, and when we go on the foreign markets, on the international market, we're going to find more opportunities to be seized, etc. There are a lot of advantages that can be actually seized or reaped by companies, by exporting companies. But the question that we have to ask ourselves, can a company afford to stay local, to stay domestic, and not to be involved in exporting? In the 70s and the 80s, that was possible because that was a kind of choice. Nowadays, it's not a choice. It's compulsory, it's mandatory for the company to go international, because otherwise it will have to fight against foreign competitors coming to its domestic market. Then the company has to go international to seize more opportunities, to diversify its risks, and to fight against those foreign competitors. Then do companies really have a choice? Here we have two possible interpretations of the situation that is permitted today or created by free trade and globalization. There is a pessimistic reading or interpretation. It is the interpretation by people who say the local market is shrinking, there are less and less opportunities, and our government does nothing to protect us, and most of these companies end out closing their activities, going out of business, laying off people working with them, and sometimes relocating their activities to another country. They complain about the exacerbation and internationalization of competition, because a lot of competitors are coming on our domestic market and we are not protected at all. And intensification and radicalization of consumer demands, because we saw last time in the previous training, we saw that consumers are becoming more and more demanding because they're faced with a lot of products, and they become very requiring, very demanding with regard to how the product is made, who made it, from what, did we preserve the environment by manufacturing that product or not, did we exploit people in manufacturing that product, and so on. Then we are facing those stiff requirements from the market, and the companies find it very difficult actually to stay domestic. The optimistic interpretation or reading of the situation is to say we have a national pie that is shrinking day after day, because we have to divide it between local producers as well as with foreign producers coming to our domestic market. But we have a much higher and much bigger pie outside. Then we have to go on the international market to get our slice of that pie. Then we try to compete against foreign competitors on their own markets and on foreign markets as well. Then this is the optimistic interpretation that says that there are a lot of opportunities outside there, and we need to go international so that we can seize those opportunities. Then exporting has a lot of advantages, as I said. Companies that are exporting are generally more growth-oriented, more competitive, because of the volume of products that they're manufacturing, and the more you produce, the lower the cost per unit price. more productive and innovative because they need to come up with new ideas of products, with new solutions, as PNDs stand for problems, needs, and desires on foreign markets are evolving. And as they are evolving, the company has to be innovative and creative by conceiving new products, new solutions, and so on to answer to these growing demands. Exporting companies are more resilient to shocks and crises because they have diversified the risks between different various markets. Greater job creators, they create a lot of jobs because of that growth. They are more innovative and sometimes more inventive because they have a lot of patents that they get by conceiving new solutions and manufacturing new products and so on. They're more profitable, especially when they export proactively, as I explained before, etc. Then a lot of advantages that exporting companies can reap. But to succeed, they must primarily there are some conditions actually to be met. And some of these conditions can be summarized into 4 Ps of mixed marketing. Then they have to have a good product. And then I'll come up to what I mean by a good product. They have to set a good price. They have to promote that product effectively. And they have to find the good distribution channel to market their products. Okay, those what we refer to. Those are what we refer to as the 4 Ps of mixed marketing. Okay, but even more important than the product, we have what we call the solution, because customers don't buy products, they buy solutions. Okay, they don't buy your products because it's your product. They buy it because it answers to something. Okay, it answers to a problem, a need, or a desire they have. Then they buy a solution, and the company has to be aware of that, because you are not going to produce whatever you want and push it to the market. You have to understand the market, to understand the PNDs before conceiving and manufacturing your products. And this is an important basic of exporting. Then you've got to understand this and to understand to what problem, to what need, or to what desire your products answers to. The consumer does not actually give attention to the price. What a good price is for him or her is the value that it creates for them. Then how they value the solution that you are proposing to them. Okay, you give them a product that answers to a problem or a desire or a need. Okay, what does your product give them in addition to what they have already on the market? Because customers are not waiting for you to start selling your product. They satisfy their needs and they resolve their problems by consuming something that exists already on the market. Then in what your product gives more or creates more value than what exists on the market. Then how consumers value the product that you are selling to them. Customers don't care about the promotion. What they care about is communication and the trustworthiness of the communication. Do they perceive you as trustworthy when you tell them, I have the right solution for you, a solution that would give you more value, that would create for you more value? Then communication, first, it has to exist, because you have to communicate around you and towards the market that you are targeting, that you have the solution. And once you do that, you've got to be trustworthy. Since you are competing against a lot of people, then people have to perceive what you are telling them. And this is something that that you will see in the forthcoming training on negotiation, in how to be trustworthy when you negotiate, how to be persuasive when you negotiate with them, so that people can understand that you have the solution and they can buy into it. And customers, again, don't care about the distribution. They care about the accessibility of the solution that you are proposing to them. Do they find it whenever and wherever they want it? Do they find it whenever and wherever they need it? Then that is what we call accessibility. Then is your solution accessible or not to them? Okay, in terms of distribution, do they find it in the nearby? Do they find it in a good price, in good conditions, and so on? And here in this presentation, we are going to emphasize the value component, which is very important here, then how to determine the good value for your product on the foreign market. Then the second part of this presentation is about the export process and steps, and I'd like just to grasp this opportunity to remind you of the process. And here it is a simplified process, actually, because there are a lot of steps. Then I try to scale them down to only 4 steps for the main category, or the 4 main steps. And the first one is to start by preparing yourself. And this is what we call the strategic exporting. Start by preparing yourself in terms of identifying your strengths and weaknesses, and not only identifying your strengths and weaknesses, but working on your weaknesses, to turn them out or turn them around to be strengths, if you can. This is very important, actually, to fix all your weaknesses, okay, and the most important ones of them at least, so that you are ready when you go on the market. And identify opportunities and threats on foreign markets so that you can spot the good opportunities, okay, that you can seize, okay. And this step can be called the export readiness assessment. Export readiness assessment, or ERA. Then on a lot of websites, you're going to find some questionnaires that would help you to perform yourself the export readiness assessment and to tell you whether you are ready, you are export ready or not. And if you are not export ready, what steps to be taken, or what actions to be done to fix your weaknesses. The second step, market selection and analysis. Then you have more than 200 countries in the world. Then don't select what we call the psychic market. The psychic market is a market that is closer to you culturally or psychologically than it is geographically. Then more often than not, in African countries, we find very strong ties with the former colonizer, the country that were colonizing your own country. Then we have a lot of linkages with them. And when we start considering going international, the market that comes first to our minds is the market we know most. And sometimes we've done our studies in that market. We have cousins on that market. We have friends on that market. We speak its language, and it makes it easier for us to go to that market and to start exporting to that market. And sometimes it turns out that market is not the most profitable, and that market is not the best one or the right one for your product or service. Then start by fighting against what we call the psychic market, and start asking yourself what market is the most profitable. And here you can use the market analysis tools of ITC, like a trade map, to find out about the markets that are the more dynamic, the markets that are growing, the markets that are paying the highest price for your product, and so on. Then market identification based on some specific criteria. And after that, once you select the right market, or the market that you deem the right one, analyze it. Analyze the market in terms of what it wants, in terms of best practices of the market, about the distribution channels, about the prices that are applied on that market, about competing products on the market, and so on. Then this would help you target the right customers and apply the right prices on the market. And that's what we called before proactiveness. The three step is about choosing the right entry mode. In some countries, you will have to invest. You will have to have a subsidiary or a selling point or some agents and so on. In some others, you will have to have some partners. Then you will have to partner with or to team up with a local partner who knows the market, who can help you overcome all your liabilities that you may have as a new exporter and a small exporter, because more often than not, new exporting companies are small businesses. And the last main step is about defining and implementing a marketing strategy. Okay, and the marketing strategy implies that you will be segmenting the market in terms of the right segment that you'll be targeting with your product, positioning your product as a top quality or a medium quality or a low quality product, depending on its characteristics and specifications. And after that, you're going to set in your marketing mix so that you can determine what solution it is, to what kind of PNDs, the value that it will add to the market, the communication to be implemented, and the accessibility, and so on. All the marketing mix components that we talked about before. Let me just illustrate the export circuit in a simplified way. You have here an agri-food company located in your country, in an African country, and you have the foreign market on the other side, and you want to go international. And this starts by making the decision to export, which is very important. And we said that for some companies, it's very difficult actually to take the decision of going international. And in some other companies, it takes a stimulus or stimuli to go international. Then, and we said that the best way of doing it would be to do it proactively. And here you perform what I called before the ERA, export readiness assessment. Then you assess whether you are ready or not by looking at your weaknesses, strengths, and so on. And you've got to decide about which one of your products, the products that you manufacture, which of your products is the most exportable, or you want to export first, to which market. Then you may have a clear idea about the market, and this is an idea that has to be verified after, once you select the market. Okay, how you are going to export? Are you going to do it directly, or are you going to hire some intermediaries like agents and so on, or traders, or export management companies or export trading companies? Then there have a lot of intermediaries that you can go through. Cost calculation, then to come up with a cost, a production cost that will be the basis of determining your export price. Which marketing? Then you are going to decide again about the solution, the value, communication, and the accessibility that I talked about before. After that, you are going to identify and select the right market for your products, the product that you want to export. And you are going to identify and select the market on the basis of some criteria. Then the size of the market, excuse me. Then the size of the market, if you want a market that buys a lot of products and a big volume of products, big quantities, are you interested in selecting a solvent market, a market that pays? You don't want to have any concern about payment, competition, who will be your competitors on that market? Dynamism, is that a market that is growing or shrinking? The image of your country in that market and the image of the country itself, the importing country. Does it have a good image or a negative image and so on? Then that might be a good criterion as well for selecting the market. And partners. Are there any partners you can team up with to enter the market, etc.? Then you may come up with a lot of criteria that you can use to select and to analyze the market. Once you select the market, you've got to analyze it. You've got to analyze it, and you've got to set a strategy and marketing plans. Okay, then strategy, mainly export marketing strategy. Okay, how you are going to position your product, what segment, what target, what adaptation or adjustments to bring to your product to make it.
That local one, okay, that's pretty clear. That local school, that thing is wonderful. It's just every morning I'm talking about. You will not even.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, because I've got a message telling me that was my voice was muted. Okay, then once you do that, when you select the market, you've got to contact the prospects or the buyers. They are going to be converted into buyers if you succeed in convincing them. Then you are going to contact your buyers, and you may find a list of those buyers on Trade Map as well. Okay, you have a tab called Enterprises. Then that gives you a first list of prospects that you can contact, and you can propose to them your products. Okay, and if they are interested in doing business with you, they are going to send you a kind of in what we call inquiry. The inquiry, then you're going to send you a request asking about some information, okay, about the price and whether the price can be revised if the order big quantities, specifications of products that you propose, the quantities that you're able to send to them. Okay, payment methods. There is a small typo here. The Incoterm that you can apply, you can adopt. Transport or transportation means, documents, etc. Then they're going to ask you, and after checking, you are going to send to them a quotation or a kind of estimate. Okay. You are going to make a value proposition to them, and more often than not, there will be negotiation. This is something that you will see on the 11th of September in the next training, how to negotiate, how to address these questions, and how to convince them to buy your product in negotiation. And sometimes they are going to accept your conditions without any negotiation if you have a good prior image on the market. Then negotiation, and if they are satisfied, they are going to place an order. They're going to place an order asking for some quantities, some specifications, and so on. And once you receive the order, you're going to start manufacturing or preparing the product, and you are going to place it on transportation means, on truck or something like that, and have it sent to the port or to the airport to be customs cleared, okay, and placed on a means of transportation that we call principal, the main transportation, okay, and sorry, and it will be actually it will be delivered to the port or the airport of the importing country, where it will be cleared. And once it is cleared, it will be forwarded to the buyer. so that they can receive it. And after that, there will be a payment of what was agreed with the buyer. Then some basics of logistics pertaining to export. Then we start with the harmonized system. Then I don't know if you have heard about the harmonized system before. It's an international classification system for goods. Then it enables us to classify the products according to their code. Then we have chapters, we have sections, and we have products. Then this covers about 5,300 products at the HS6 level. Then we have 3 levels, as you can see here. HS2, then HS followed by 2 digits, refers to the chapter. Then we have chapter 16, for instance. Chapter 16 encompasses everything that has to do with preparations of meat, fish, crustaceans, mollusks, and so on. Okay. Then we try to put all the products that the products that have some homogeneity between them, we put them in the same chapter, and we go a step beyond that by giving some sections or some headings inside the chapters. Then the sections, like here, the section 04, that 16 is for the chapter, and the following 2 digits are for the section. Prepare preserved fish. Then you see that we are always within the preparations, and here's the preparation of preserved fish, etc. Okay, and we go even in depth by giving more details. And here, HS6, 6 digits, refers to the products itself. An example 160413 is about prepared preserved sardines, sardinellas, and so on. Okay, then here you give this code, this harmonized system code to anyone in the world. Okay, it would understand that it's about prepared preserved sardines. Okay, and this makes it possible for us to prevent misunderstandings. Okay, misinterpretations between buyers and sellers. And sometimes some people would ask for a product, and it turns out that that name of that product refers to something different in your own country. And this is what Bernard Shaw, as I said this morning, referred to, talking about England, about UK, and the United States. He said 2 nations divided by a common language. It means that English is spoken both in UK and in United States, but it's not the same language. It's not the same English, because in every language we have a lot of false friends, words that exist in the two languages, but they refer to different things. And we have this in many languages, including French, for instance. French that is spoken in Quebec is not the same French that is spoken in France. If a Quebecois invites you for dinner, they are expecting you at lunch. Whereas if a French invites you for dinner, they are expecting you at the evening. Then you see that we have different meanings, and even the word actually does not seem the same. That does not mean the same thing in the 2 countries, and so on. Then a lot of false friends exist in different languages. It's even worse if you don't speak the language of that country, than to make sure that you are talking about the same product. Sometimes it's very confusing. And that's why the harmonized system makes it easier for people to have the same understanding of what they are talking about. Then here, this is something that is international. All countries use the harmonized system. Okay, then up to 6 digits, okay, of the code. Okay, this is something that can be compared internationally. If you want, for instance, to get the top 10 countries importing your product in the world. You go to trade map and you enter this code and you are going to get the 10 countries. Then it gives comparison between those countries with regard to the value of their import, the quantities that are imported, and so on. Whereas if you go beyond the 6 digits, you are talking about what we call the national tariff, the national tariff line. Every country takes the 6 digits and adds between 2 and 6 other digits to make it a national code. And that's what we call the national tariff line. And those lines are not comparable between countries because they are national. They are specific to the country that is defining them. Okay, then you may take 1604130000. Okay, if the country finds that it's enough. If the country wants more more details, for instance, it's going to add some other digits, 0001, 0010, 0020, and so on, so that it can have more fine-tuning of that code. Okay, and this makes it national in the same thing. Then, if you want to perform a good market study, you've got to understand what is the harmonized system code of the product that you want to export and start looking for information accordingly. We come to the other important basic, which is about Incoterms 2020 version. The Incoterms stands for International Commercial Terms. Okay, those are terms that can be used to understand who will bear the cost and the responsibility of the products being exchanged between the seller and the buyer. Okay, then they specify the moment of the transfer of risk between the seller and the buyer, and also who will pay for what, who will pay for transportation, who will pay for insurance, sorry, who will pay for loading and unloading the means of transportation, and so on. And again, like the harmonized system, they are meant to prevent misunderstandings and confusion between buyers and sellers. They were defined by the ICC, the International Chamber of Commerce in Paris, to prevent misunderstandings and conflicts and problems between sellers and buyers all over the world. The current version of the Incoterms encompasses 11 Incoterms, and is applicable from January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2029. Okay, then we're going to look at the 11 Incoterms in the world that are used actually. And again, what I just explained here is about the objective, which is to avoid conflicts and misunderstandings and ambiguities between the seller and the buyer. Then here, if we can actually summarize the international goods flow in this way, with regard to the logistics, we have the seller. Okay, we have here the pre-transportation, inland transportation inside the seller's country, customs to clear the exported product. We have here the port or the airport, or the train station, for instance. You have the means of transportation. Okay, that's what you call the main transportation. And you have the port or airport or train station or the truck station in the importing country. The products that are imported are going to be cleared, customs cleared again in the importing country, will be transported. Then this is what we call the inland transportation in the foreign country, and they will be delivered to the buyer. Okay, this is actually a scheme of how goods flow internationally from the seller's warehouse or factory to the buyer's warehouse or factory. Then let's go look at the 11 Incoterms in the 2020 version. Then we have here 11, as you can see, 11 Incoterms, and you have here those are the tasks and the activities that will be involved, and those are the Incoterms, 11 of them. Okay, and we are going to focus mainly on the most frequently used Incoterms. We are not going to look at all of them. We are going to focus only on those that are the most important. And we have here 6 of them. We have Ex-Works, we have free carrier alongside, we have free on board, we have cost and freight, we have CIF, which is cost, insurance, and freight, and we have delivered duty paid. Delivered duty paid. Okay. The other ones are rarely used, and some of them are not used at all, actually. Okay, I've never seen in more than 30 years consulting and helping companies and so on. I've never seen a company using FAS, which is free alongside ship. Then it's something that is really rare. And some other Incoterms were removed from the list when this version was defined. Then we can actually come up with 3 kinds of typologies of Incoterms. We can distinguish between them based on 3 criteria. We can have a typology that distinguishes between multimodal Incoterm. Multimodal Incoterms are Incoterms that can be used dependless of the means of transportation. Use the train, use the truck, use the plane, use ship. You can use those Incoterms. Okay, you can versus, and this is the first category, versus maritime or inland waterway Incoterms. And Incoterms that can be used only when we opt for maritime transportation. Second typology, Incoterms of departure versus Incoterms of arrival. Incoterms that apply only to the departure, okay, of goods. Then we can have FOB, for instance, FOB Lagos, okay. Incoterms of arrival, CIF Casablanca, or CIF Barcelona, or CIF Cadiz in Spain, and so on. Then Incoterms of arrival. And the third kind of typology is a typology that is based on the first letter of those Incoterms. Then Incoterms that start with the letter E, okay, are Incoterms of departure. Means that the buyer is going to take care of everything. The buyer buys or pays for everything, and the seller does nothing. Okay, and the only Incoterm in the 2020 version of Incoterms is Ex-Works. Sorry, Ex-Works. It means that the seller is going to put the products outside of her factory or warehouse, and the buyer is going to pay for everything to get the product from the seller's warehouse to his or her own warehouse. The second category, Incoterms, starting with an F. It means that the main transportation, okay, is not paid by the seller. The seller is going to stop paying when the product is delivered to the carrier, the transporter, if you mean. Okay, then the main transport is not paid by the seller. The buyer is responsible for this cost. And here we have FOB, FCA, or FAS. Incoterms beginning with C means it's the opposite of this one. It means that the main freight or the main transport is paid for by the seller. And we have CIF, SHIP, CFR, and CPT. And the last category is the opposite of the first one. Then here, Incoterms beginning with D, Incoterms of arrival means that the buyer takes care of nothing until the goods arrive in his or her own country. Then everything is managed and paid for by the seller. And the most important Incoterm is DDP, okay? When you buy something online and you get it on special delivery to your own doorstep, okay? The seller has taken care of everything, including the customs duties, if any. Then let's have a look at those selected Incoterms. X works. And you see here that the X works with regard to transport, risk, and insurance. The seller's responsibility stops at the gate of his or her own company or warehouse. Then his responsibility or her responsibility would be just to put the goods outside of the warehouse, and the buyer is going to buy or to pay for everything starting from that point. Then they're going to pay even for the inland transportation in the seller's own country. Okay. Then here, the seller is responsible for packing, labeling, and marking the goods, making the goods available to the buyer at the seller's place of business, factory, warehouse, etc. And very simple to use, but nonetheless quite risky for the seller. Even the seller does not do anything or almost anything except packing, labeling, and marking the goods and putting them at the gate of his or her own factory or warehouse. The risk is that the seller needs documentation that proof that the export has taken place. Otherwise, he or she will have to justify that the product have left the national territory, and they have to have evidence of this. Okay, then if the transporter, the carrier, does not bring them back the documentation proving that the export has taken place, then that would be a problem, and they may be actually forced to pay some penalties to the customs, because sometimes they buy raw materials without paying duties, import duties, because they committed themselves to sell that product. Then if they don't do it, or if they are not able to justify that they have done it, they would be forced to pay some penalties and some infringements to the customs. Second Incoterm, FCA. FCA stands for Free Carrier Alongside, and this is a multimodal Incoterm. Means that it works with all modes of transportation. Even with maritime transportation, you can use FCA. It's rare, but it can be used. Here, the responsibility of the seller is to accomplish the customs clearance activities or formalities, and after that, deliver the product to the main carrier. Deliver the product to the main carrier once the product has been customs exported, customs cleared, sorry. Then here, his or her responsibility stops at this point once the product is delivered to the main carrier. And the responsibility of the buyer starts from there, okay, and covers the rest of the circuit. The features of the FCA Incoterm: the seller is responsible for packing, labeling, and marking the goods, loading the goods onto the local transport truck or means of transportation, organizing and paying for the pre-transport of the goods from the seller's factory to the point of loading, completing the customs formalities in the seller's country, and paying all fees and taxes related to customs clearance of goods to be shipped. Okay, and according to statistics of ICC, this Incoterm is used in about 25% of all international transactions of commodities and goods in the world. This is the most used FCA, okay? Even if we think sometimes that it's FOB or it's CIF, FCA is used in more than. Then the next Incoterm is FOB, free on board. Then free on board, here, as you can see, it's similar to FCA, but it pertains to maritime transportation. Then the seller does everything for the product to be customs cleared and delivered to the carrier. And once the product is delivered to the carrier, the responsibility of the seller stops. And the risks as well are transferred at this point to the buyer. The buyers actually supports or bears with the risks from that point. Okay. Then here, the seller is responsible for packing, labeling, and loading the goods, and so on, organizing and paying for the pre-transport, completing the customs formalities, organizing and paying for loading the goods onto the ship. And here, very important to give that precision, because it's very important. That makes a difference with FAS. I told you that FAS is really, very rarely used. FAS stands for free alongside ship. It means that the seller is going to deliver the product on the dock, okay, on the dock, and he or she does not pay for loading the goods. Whereas in FOB, the seller pays for loading the goods onto the ship. And this is very important to bring in mind here. CFR stands for cost and freight. Cost and freight. The same thing as FOB. Okay, same thing as FOB, with the addition of paying for the main transportation. The seller pays for the main carrier, for the main transportation. That is the only difference with FOB. Okay, then the transfer of risks occurs at the same point as FOB. The insurance as well stops at that point when the product is loaded onto the ship, but the seller pays for the transportation. Okay, this is the only difference here. Okay, and CIF, cost, insurance, and freight, and I have to go a bit quicker. Then CIF, the same thing, but the seller pays as well for the insurance. Okay, pays as well for the insurance. Then FOB, okay, at this point, but in addition, I have a problem with the then CIF, the seller pays as well for the insurance on the main transportation. Okay, and here a good important precision before going any further. When I say that the seller pays for the main transportation and pay for the assurance of that main transportation, okay, that covers all the costs until the ship arrives at the port of destination, okay? And the seller does not pay for unloading. He or she pays for loading in the departure port, but they don't pay for unloading. The unloading, the buyer buys, the buyer pays for unloading the goods into destination port. Okay, it's very important because sometimes there are some misunderstandings and some conflicts rising from who has to pay for unloading the products in the destination port. Then CIF, the seller is responsible for everything, like in ship, organizing and paying for the main transportation and organizing and paying for insurance until the goods arrive at the destination port. DDP, the last Incoterm that we're going to look into today, DDP stands for Delivered Duty Paid. Okay, then it's quite the opposite of the X-Works. X-Works, we said that the responsibility of the seller stops here. Okay, here the seller does everything, okay, until the product arrives at the buyer's warehouse or factory. Okay, they pay for everything. And this is something that is frequently used in DHL, UPS, Globex, delivery, and so on. Then when you buy something on a virtual market and or on Amazon or something, and you have it delivered to your door, okay, the seller takes care of everything and bears the risk until the product arrives there on your country. Then, as I said, they take care even of the customs clearance of goods and so on. Then those Incoterms have some limitations. Okay, they are not perfect. In addition to what I said regarding Xworks, the use of Incoterms is optional. It's not mandatory. It becomes mandatory only if they are mentioned formally in the contract. If in the contract between the buyer and the seller, they precise that they will have recourse to Incoterms and they will be using the specific Incoterm, then it becomes mandatory. Other limitation, sometimes some people get confused with the equivalent American version of FOB, which is called the American FOB. American FOB followed by the name of the port of departure, like, for instance, FOB New York. Okay, we assume wrongly that the product will be delivered on the vessel, on the ship, in the port of New York. Whereas the American interpretation of FOB New York means that the seller can deliver the product in any collection point in the city of New York, okay? And sometimes in the state of New York, okay, which makes the confusion even bigger and even more important. Then you can deliver it in the railway terminal, in the train station, or elsewhere. And the buyer will have to pay for everything until the goods are put on the ship. Then to prevent such a risk, okay, you've got to precise after FOB that we are talking about ICC version. ICC version. Then FOB ICC version means that we're not talking about American FOB, we're talking about FOB ICC, which means that in this case, the seller will be forced to deliver the product and to pay for everything, including the loading of goods onto the ship in the port of New York or New Jersey, or something in the nearby. That has been precised and that has been agreed upon in the commercial contract between the seller and the buyer. We have also the FOB UK. When sometimes we see FOB UK, UK is a country or even a bunch of countries. It's not a location departure. Then if you see this mentioned on your contract or the contract you are exchanging with the buyer or the seller, don't accept it, okay? Then more often the seller, because this FOB UK will be used by the seller, the British seller, rather than the African seller. Then here, when we have FOB UK, it means that the products can be loaded on a ship in whatever English port. Okay, it can be Bristol, it can be Portsmouth, it can be another port in UK, but not only in England, but in UK. Okay. Sometimes we see the landed CIF. The landed CIF, remember what I said before? I said that in CIF, the seller is responsible for paying for everything, including the transportation and the insurance, until the product arrives at the destination port, which is the arrival port. But the seller is not responsible for paying for unloading the ship or unloading the goods from the ship, okay? When we add landed CIF, it means that the seller is going to pay for unloading. Then that makes a difference with CIF, because CIF per se means that the unloading will be taken care of by the buyer, not the seller. But when we add landed, it means that the seller is going to pay for unloading. And this is actually an Incoterm that was removed from the list. It existed in previous versions. It was called DEC delivered XK. Delivered XK. It meant that the seller pays for unloading, and this is the equivalent of landed CIF. DEC does not exist, and because it doesn't exist, some people add landed to make it clear for the seller to pay for unloading. But it's confusing. It's confusing because it's not one of the 11 Incoterms that were published by the ICC. Some other limitations of Incoterms. Sorry. The Incoterm does not address the issue of transferring ownership of the goods. Then it makes it clear that the seller is paying for this and that, and the risk will be transferred from the seller to the buyer at that point. But the ownership remains with the seller until the product is paid for. Then the Incoterm does not guarantee that you are going to be paid. Then you've got to guarantee the payments otherwise. Sometimes, and I saw it many times, we have some maritime Incoterms such as FOB, and more frequently it's about FOB, free on board. Sometimes it's used with other modes of transportation, like I saw FOB Mohammed V Airport in Casablanca. And FOB, it's not a multimodal Incoterm, but some people wrongly used it. Then FOB is a maritime Incoterm. Then to avoid any confusion, it's strongly recommended to add ICC 2020 version after the Incoterm and the location, departure of arrival. Yeah, for instance, FOB Dakar. Dakar is the port of departure, and you add ICC 2020 version so that people will not be confused. Okay, mainly if you are exporting, for instance, to North America, where the American FOB is widely used, then when you add ICC 2020 version, people would understand that you're referring to the 11 Incoterms, and they are going to understand what those Incoterms entail for them. Then how to choose the Incoterm? Sometimes it will be imposed by the buyer. Sometimes the buyer will tell you, okay, it's FOB or nothing. Then and you find yourself forced to accept what the buyer wants. Okay, but more often than not, the choice is based on these factors. The first one is the negotiation between seller and buyer, and this negotiation will the seller would ask for such and such Incoterm, and the buyer would maybe try to impose another Incoterm. They are going to negotiate, and they're going to strike a deal about the Incoterm to be applied. Market habits, and sometimes for some specific products, the Incoterm used is FOB or CIF, for instance, for oil, for some other products, from phosphates and so on. There are some practices or habits that are widely used, then you are not going to negotiate anything. Practices of competing companies, what competing companies are proposing to their customers. What are they willing to accept? Because sometimes the seller asks you for a CIF, for instance, and you say, no, we won't sell CIF, CIF. We use only FOB. And if there is somebody else who proposes CIF as well, your customer may go and do business with them instead of you, because you were not able to give them satisfaction with regard to what they are asking about the Incoterm. Practices of competing companies, when what competing companies are doing is very important. Then the chosen mode of transport, then you are not going to choose FOB for airborne transportation, for instance. Okay, then you've got to select the Incoterm that is used in that specific type of transportation. The international context, then if somebody tells you, okay, I want DDP, it means that you're going, as a seller, you're going to pay for everything, including the customs duties, until the product arrives at their own warehouse. Are you willing to accept such a risk? And sometimes it's risky because between the time you start exporting and the time the product arrives at the buyer's country, maybe customs duties may have increased, okay? Instead of paying 5%, for instance, you find yourself compelled to pay 40%. And it happened last year two years ago, sorry, in Morocco. Some products whose custom duties were 2.5% were increased to 40%, almost overnight. And it happens more often than not, it happens in many countries. Then before accepting DDP, you've got to assess such a risk and put some guarantees in the contract, stating that if you are going to accept DDP, but if the transportation cost or the insurance cost or customs duties are increased in the meanwhile, you are going to make the buyer buy for that increase in your costs. And then you're going to guarantee, actually, you're going to hedge the risk. Costs to be borne, then what are the costs that you're going to bear when accepting such and such Incoterm? Risks to be taken and insurance to cover them. Then are you guaranteed, are you insured against some specific risks? Like what we call act of God, for instance, your goods are being transported to a country and there is an activity of piracy or an act of God or something like that. Do you have the right insurance to cover such a risk before accepting the Incoterm? Mastery, how well you master the transportation modes and logistics, and how well you master customs clearance procedures in your country and in the importing country as well. Then, based on how you're going to answer these questions, you've got to accept or not accept some specific Incoterms. Modes of transport, there are a variety of modes of transport that the exporter and the importer can choose from. The most popular ones are the three first: the maritime, airborne, road, or land. And sometimes we talk also about roll-on, roll-off, what we call RoRo. Then you have some specific vessels that open up and let trucks and sometimes trains get inside. Then railway transportation as well, postal or courier, inland waterway, very popular in some countries in Africa and in Europe mainly. Pipelines for liquids, petroleum, gas, and so on. Cable for electricity, internet, and so on. Multimodal, when we use more than one mode of transportation between two countries. Drones, it's becoming quite popular in many countries to deliver products, and sometimes it's done illegally, and in some countries it starts being done legally. Okay. Modes of transportation can be on your own account. Then when you have your own trucks, your own plane, your own trains, and some companies do have that. Some large companies do have their own trucks that deliver the products wherever they have to deliver them. Chartering, then you can charter, you can rent a plane or a ship or something like that. What we call exclusive shipment means that the forload belongs to you And here we use some abbreviations like FTL, FCL. Donc FTL stands for full truck load. FCL stands for full container load. When the whole container actually is full of your own products, there are no products that don't belong to you. We talk about FCL, we talk about FTL if it's a truck, or a wagon if we're talking about the rail transportation. We talk as well about grouping. Grouping means that only a few products belong to you and the other products belong to other chargers. We call them chargers. And if you have like 3 parcels or 4 parcels that you want to export somewhere, you are not going to rent a full container. You are going to give them to a freight forwarder, and specifically to groupers. We call them groupers. You give them your parcels and they're going to put them together inside a container or inside a truck, along with products belonging to other exporters. And the whole container will be transported to the specific destination. And here we have some advantages and disadvantages of each mode of transportation. Sea transport, air transport, road transport, and we have as well some advantages, disadvantages, and characteristics of rail transport, river transport, or what we call the waterways, inland waterways transportation, postal services, and so on. Those 2 slides give you enough information to know about the advantages and disadvantages of choosing a means of transportation. But again, when I was talking a few minutes ago about whether we have the choice of going international or not, and here as well, I have to ask whether we have a choice of the mode of transportation, because sometimes we are forced to choose one specific mode of transportation. We have a product that is perishable and that I have to deliver to a specific market the quickest and in the shortest time possible, because I don't want the product to get perishable before being delivered to the customer. Then here I've got to select a quick or a fast mode of transportation. If I select a low one or a slow one, like the maritime transportation, for instance, the product is going to arrive completely perished, or the product cannot be used, cannot be sold to customers. Then the nature and characteristic of the merchandise or the goods to be transported, sometimes the weight of the product, if I want to export hammerheads, for instance, to a specific market, I am not going to use the plane because it's very costly, and because the head of hammers are not valuable, and they are very heavy. Then I'm not going to use something that is very expensive. Okay, if I have jewelry, for instance, I'm not going to use maritime transportation. Then sometimes the way, the nature, the characteristics of the goods impose on me the choice of a specific mode of transportation. Sorry. Then the transport cost as well is very important, and you've got to compare it to the cost of the goods to be transported. The packaging cost, because if you want the maritime transportation, for instance, you've got to come up with a good packaging that would protect the product during the transportation. Then you've got to consider the cost of the packaging as well in selecting the mode of transportation. Additional costs and fees that you will have to pay. Delivery frequency, then how frequent is the delivery? What we call the transit time, how long it is. how long it's going to take to get the products on the shelves. Can the products afford to stay or to wait until it's delivered, and so on. Then storage locations, where we're going to store it, and does it need any specific storage conditions, and so on. The distance, then very important, because it has a very important impact on the cost and on the perishability of the products, and so on. Available infrastructure. In some countries, you have ports that are not equipped to handle containers. Then very difficult actually to have ships delivering containers, unless we're talking about equipped ships. Some ships are equipped to deliver containers and to handle them, to do the handling themselves, to put the containers on the dock. Okay, and all those criteria and others are very important to consider when choosing for the mode of transportation. Export documents, and I'm going to make it a little quicker because I'm going out of time. Then we have the most important export documents that we encounter when doing exporting. Pro forma invoice. It's an invoice that would enable the seller to accomplish some formalities and procedures before before importing the product into their country. The commercial invoice is the invoice that you give to your customer, and it states a lot of information like the specification, like the quantity, the price, according to Incoterms, all the costs involved, and so on. Consular invoice, it's quite rare. It means that the importer may ask the exporter to take the commercial invoice, to take it to their diplomatic representation in his or her own country, and to get it stamped. Then the embassy or the consulate of the importing country says or attests or witnesses that the exporter exists, his or her own company exists, and it's not a fake, because we face a lot of problems here from people that would claim that they're exporters, and they are not. They are just waiting for opportunities actually to take benefit from the situation. The weight certificate is very important as well. It's actually sometimes it's required by customs to know about the weight of the product. The packing list. It helps a lot to know how many parcels we have in the shipment. The transport document, it can be a bill of lading, it can be a letter of airborne transport, it can be a document delivered by the truck delivering the goods, and so on. Then the document of transportation is very important, because it says what kind of transportation was used, and how much did it actually require? What's the cost of that kind of transportation? Fumigation certificate. If you are packing your product in something that is based, that is wooden, or using some, actually some, how do we call them? Some pallets, or some wood, or some product, some vegetables, or based on vegetation, then you've got to produce a kind of, you can come up with a certificate of fumigation, proving that vegetable product or wooden product has been treated appropriately to prevent any introduction of insects into the buy-in or into the importing country. Pre-shipment inspection certificate. Sometimes you ask the exporter to have a third-party inspector witnessing that the product that the exporter is about to ship is conform to the product that has been ordered. Then that's what we call pre-shipment inspection certificate. And insurance certificates, then you've got to give a certificate of insurance proving that the goods have been insured against specific risks. Certificate of conformity to specific standards, and if the buyer wants to have a certificate that the product has been inspected and that is in compliance with some standards, then they're going to ask for a copy or a certificate of conformity to specific standards. Certificate of origin, certificate that give the proof that the product is originating from the exporting country. And we ask for such a certificate to prevent paying customs duties if there is a commercial or trade agreement between the importing country and the exporting one. The buyer or the importer wants to avoid paying customs duties if the trade agreement actually gives such an incentive. Then you ask for certificate of origin to give the buyer the ability to avoid paying customs duties. And sometimes it's just required by customs authorities of the importing country just to make sure that the products comes from a country that is not under embargo or let's say a country that is under sanctions by the United Nations or any other country or grouping of countries, etc. Then those are the most important exporting documents that we find in the exporting process. Export pricing, then export pricing is very important here because defining the right price has a lot of implications on the profitability of your company, as well as on its positioning on its market. And I would like to start with this important slide because pricing or setting the right price is a question of balance between two important considerations. Then consideration that pertains to accounting and finance, because the price that you are going to set has at least to cover your production cost and preferably to give you a profit margin. Then here, it's an accounting issue or accounting consideration that you have to take into consideration, because if you have no idea about your production cost, you may find yourself selling your products at loss. Then it's important to have the conviction or the certainty that you're selling at a price high enough to cover at least your production cost and preferably, as I said, to give you some benefit, some profit. And the second consideration to be taken when setting the export price is a marketing one. Then you've got to know about the prices applied on similar products in the market. Then you want to sell on a market, and you've got to find out about at what price competing products or competitors' products are sold at that market. Because if you set your export price too much higher than competitors, people are not going to buy them. And if you set your products, your prices at a price or at a level that is too much lower than those of competitors, a lot of people are going to associate your product with low quality, with second choice product and something like that. Then if you want to sustain the positioning of your products on the market, you've got to know about the prices that are applied on the market and set your own price accordingly. Then those are the two important considerations to take in mind, and this is a kind of a conclusion that is given before diving into the topic, or what we call generally introduction. It means that conclusion is used as an introduction to that chapter, to that section. The first thing that I would like actually to explain here is that tool that is called the value chain. It was developed by Michael Porter, and it's widely used in strategy as well as in marketing. Then it has two types of activities that are performed within companies. Then we have first what we call primary activities. Then what do we understand by do we mean by primary activities? Primary activities are activities that add value directly to the product. Then we have here raw materials, okay, that enters the value chain and would go through the process and we'll get the final products here. Then have the raw material that comes here at a cost of, let's say, 100. Inbound logistics would add to it, let's say, 20 euros, for instance. Operations that would add to it 30 euros, and so on. And we get a final product here that is worth 300 euros. Then the raw materials here enters with 100, and here we have 300. Then in this process, we have been able to add 200 euros to the product. Then each activity adds directly value to the product. Okay, and the sum of these values, in addition to the margin, the profit margin, would give us the product that is delivered at the end of the value chain. Okay, then each activity here has a cost and adds value. And as a matter of fact, we expect each activity to add more value than what it costs. Okay, but bear in mind here just that we have a lot of costs here that we call direct costs, because the costs can be added to the product as the value is added to the product. And here we have a cost. For instance, we have been able to add 200 euros of value, but the cost was about 120. Okay, then the cost is 120 because each activity here has a cost. Then the cost that can be directly linked to the product. But we have another set of activities that we call support activities. Those activities don't add cost directly, don't add value directly. Then they help the primary activities add value, but they don't add value directly. They just sustain, support those activities. That's why we call them support activities. But nonetheless, they have costs. Okay, they have costs, and that costs cannot be directly linked to each activity. Then we have here costs that can be added only indirectly, and that's why we call them indirect costs. Then here indirect costs, and here direct costs. I hope everything is clear here. Then the cost, the final cost, is an equation of direct costs plus indirect costs. And this is the production cost. Another way of looking at them, is to distinguish between what we call fixed costs and variable costs. Then fixed costs are costs that are paid dependless of the production volume. You produce 10 units or you produce 100 units, it doesn't have any impact on those costs. For instance, the rent that you pay for your warehouse, you pay 1,000 euros, for instance, per month. You manufacture 10 units or you manufacture 1,000 units, you will have to pay 1,000 euros for rent. Okay, then this cost does not vary according to what you are producing or to what you are manufacturing. Okay, on the contrary, you have raw materials that are variable costs. The more you produce, the more raw materials you are going to buy, and the more costs it's going to cost you. Okay. Then variable costs are costs that increase with production. Okay. And more often than not, they increase in a complete correlation with your production. Whereas fixed costs, again, you have a general director to whom you pay a salary every month. Okay. This salary is not linked to the production. Okay. Then it's a fixed cost. Then we have fixed cost and we have variable cost. Okay. And this will help us actually understand how to take account of these costs. Okay. Then variable costs for export include, if we look at what you are exporting, we have some costs that are variable that vary according to the production. Costs to adapt the product to the foreign market. Then the more product you adapt for foreign market, the more costs you are going to bear. Development costs specific to the foreign market. You find out that you've got to come up with a new product tailored specifically for the foreign market. Then it costs, and all what it costs you is variable because it depends on the volume of products you are going to produce for that foreign market. Representation costs. You've got an agent who brings to you deals. You are going to pay to them a specific amount based on the amount of the deal. Then you are going to pay them a cost that varies according to the volume. Transport costs of the merchandise. Then you give your product to the carrier, and they're going to charge you according to the number of the products. That can be the weight, that can be the volume, or can be the number of units that you are exporting. And those are costs that vary according to what you are exporting. Customs clearance fees, again, also a variable cost. Insurance costs, and so on. All these costs are variable costs linked to exporting. Let's look at some other examples. In fixed costs, examples of fixed costs, the heating. Now, the heating you are paying for is a fixed cost. Electricity, okay? Then insurance, salaries of management members, administrative staff, then local and business taxes, depreciation of buildings, mortgage interests. Variable costs may include raw materials, manufacturing labor, supervision, representative commissions, packaging and labeling, and so on. Those are examples of variable costs that you have to incur. Then when we talk about export pricing, we've got first to present the methods of calculation, the methods used to calculate the cost and the export price. Then we have 4 methods to calculate the cost of exported products. The first one is called the marginal cost method, the marginal cost method. Then I'm going to explain each one of these methods. The second one is called the national cost plus method. Then I take into consideration the national cost, to which I add costs that I have to pay for exporting the products. The full cost method, I take into consideration all the costs, okay? The full cost method. The foreign market price method, then here I take into consideration the price of the market, okay? What we call the psychic price or the competitor's price as well. We take them into consideration, and this implies that I know very well my market. Then let's start with the marginal cost. Marginal cost means that I'm not going to take into consideration the fixed cost when trying to calculate my production cost. I am going to exclude fixed costs, and they said fixed costs are costs that are that I pay dependless of the volume of production. Whether I produce or not, I will have to pay for those fixed costs. And one of the examples that I've taken is the rent of your warehouse. Then whether you are working, you are producing, you are selling or not, you pay the rent of 1,000 euros, for instance. Then here, when we talk about the marginal cost, it means that you are going to omit all the fixed costs. You are not going to take care of the fixed costs. You are going to take into consideration only variable costs of exported products. Then you are not going to take into consideration the costs of fixed costs, because those costs are already, let's say, imputed or amortized on the local market. Then whether I export or not, I've already taken into consideration those fixed costs when setting the price for local products. Then I'm not going to take them into consideration when exporting, because I want to be competitive. And to be competitive, I have to lower my costs. And one way of doing this is to omit the fixed costs when when setting my price. We're going to take an example. If you find this quite confusing, we're going to take an example and you're going to understand what I mean by marginal cost. Then this is an example here. We have two markets, domestic markets and export market. Okay, unit fixed cost. Then when I take, for instance, the rent of my warehouse, for instance, I said 1,000 euros. Okay, if I produce only 10 units, okay, 10 units, then 10 units, I have to divide the fixed costs on 10 units. If I produce 1,000 units, I've got to divide it onto 1,000 units. Then it would cost less. And this is what we call the economies of scale before. Then the more you produce, okay, the more products you manufacture, and the lower is the cost. Okay, and this is very important. And what is said here is that you take into consideration in your calculation the fixed costs for your domestic products, domestic markets, but you don't take them into consideration when setting your export price. Then this is what we call the marginal cost. Then here you omit the fixed costs. You take care, or you take into consideration only the variable costs. And here we have the unit variable costs. For domestic market is there are 12 units, for instance. And for export market, since I have to prepare some specific or some special documentation, I have to pay the representatives and the salespeople on the market, I have to pay some other costs, then variable costs are higher, generally higher. Then I have here in the example, I have 15 euros per unit for export market. The total production costs, here I have 20 euros, then 8 plus 12. And here I have only 15 because I've omitted to take into consideration the unit fixed costs to get or to be more competitive. Then here I'll be more competitive than if I've taken into consideration the fixed costs. And here, if I, for instance, I decide to have a margin profit of at least 25%, then I will be selling my local products at 25 euros and my export market products at 18.75 euros. Okay, then you see that I am increasing, I'm enhancing my competitiveness by omitting of taking into consideration the fixed costs. I hope the example is clear enough. Then second method, the national cost plus. Then here, what do? I calculate the price for products meant for exporting the same way I do for the national products. And I add everything that has to do with exporting. Then all the expenses pertaining to exporting will be added. And that's why we call them national costs, because it's the same way of calculating the local products costs, plus what? Plus all the expenses that I have to pay for, and that pertain to exporting. This is a simpler method, simple, okay? It doesn't require a lot of technicity or a lot of know-how, and it's frequently used by exporters because of its simplicity. The problem is that it does not tell us if this price takes into consideration the price that is applied on the foreign market. Then I've got, once I set my price according to this method, I've got to compare it to the prices applied on the foreign market, and I adjust my price accordingly. Then here we have the third method before giving an example that is called full cost. Full cost, it names reveals, okay, it takes into consideration all the costs that the company has to incur sorry, in manufacturing and in exporting the product. Then here in this method, I don't omit the fixed cost. I add them to the cost, and I take into consideration the full cost. And here I have an example, national cost plus, and two variations, national marginal cost plus. Then here I'm going to take into consideration only marginal costs. And in another example, I'm going to take the same scenario and I'm going to present national full cost plus, just for you to understand the difference between both. Then here I have the first, let's say, the first one, the case here is about exporting vegetable preserve, port of departure Lagos, port of arrival Barcelona in Spain, chosen Incoterms CIF Barcelona. It means that the seller will have to pay for insurance and freight as well until Barcelona. Then here, production cost, I have 1,200 euros. Okay, how did I calculate it? I have cost of raw materials and consumables, 850 euros. Fixed cost, 0, because it's marginal, as I said. Then I'm omitting to take into consideration the fixed costs, and I'm taking consideration only of variable manufacturing cost, 350. 350, then 850 plus 350 gives me 1,200, 1,200 euros. Okay, as I'm exporting, I can ask for refunding, for getting back the VAT that I paid on my cost materials and consumables. Then let's assume that they are 90. Then 90 will be deducted from the production cost, adjustment of duties and taxes. If I import some of the raw materials, I may have paid customs duties. Then I ask for their reimbursement. That's what we call the drawback. I ask customs authorities to pay me back what I paid when importing the raw materials. Assume we have here 30, then 90 plus 30, 120. It comes in deduction of 1,200. Then here, A minus B would give me the net production cost for products to be exported. I have 1,080 euros. To which I add variable costs related to export. And I have a lot of costs that I incurred when exporting. Export packaging, I prepared a special package for products to be exported, 50. Advertising costs, 40. Financial costs, 20. Export documentation, 20. Credit insurance, 15. And agents' commissions, the commissions that I pay to the agent that brought to me that order, 100. Then I have 245 euros. Okay, then net production cost plus variable costs, okay, would give me a total of 1,325 euros. That's the factory price. That's how much it costs me without making any benefit. Okay, that will be my break-even point, if you want. Break-even point, when I don't make any benefit or any loss. Desired margin, the margin that I would like to have, then 20% of rounded factory price. And I have here 1,325 by 20%. That gives me a margin of 265 that I add to the factory price. That gives me my first Incoterm, Xworks Lagos. Then if I propose my products, my goods, Xworks, which means that as a seller, I have to take the product and to put it, to make it available outside of my factory or of my warehouse, and the buyer would come and would take care of everything. Then that would be 1,590 euros. And I have the delivery. Sorry, I'm in the countryside, and there is a truck passing by. Then delivery and customs fees, freight forwarder fees, 60, road transport to the port. Then I have a truck that I've rented and entrusted with the duty of taking the goods to the port, 130, road transport insurance, 20, customs duties and fees, 45. Okay, then I have a total of 255 of variable fees, okay, that I have to add to my Xworks price. Then 1,590 plus 255 plus the free onboard costs, the loading costs of goods onto the ship. That would give me a FOB, free onboard Lagos price of 1,965. Okay, if the buyer asks me to pay also for the transportation, the sea freight, 300. Okay, I will have the next Incoterm, which is the CFR, the cost freight and freight, Barcelona. Okay, 2,265 euros, and insurance, 75. That would give me CIF, a CIF Incoterm, cost, insurance and freight, Barcelona price, 2,340. Then the buyer asks me to give them a quotation for a CIF Incoterm price. That would be 2,340. Okay, because I didn't take into consideration, as you can see, I didn't take into consideration the fixed costs. Okay, as you see here. In the next scenario, I'll take the same situation, the same case, exported product, vegetable preserve, port of departure Lagos, port of arrival Barcelona, choosing Incoterm CIF Barcelona. And here, as you can see, I'm taking into consideration the fixed cost as well. That's the only difference. Then here, that's what we were talking about, full cost plus. Then cost of raw materials, the same as before, 850. Variable manufacturing cost, 350. Fixed cost, 300. Then here, my production cost is 1,500. Okay. Domestic selling price, and they said that I'm applying 20% margin rate. Then that will give me 1,500 by 1.20 to have the amount with the margin. That will give me 1,800 euros. Adjustment of duties, same thing as before, minus 120. That would give me a net production cost of 1,380, as compared to as you saw before, 1,080. Then 1,080 versus 1,380. Okay. Variable export cost, the same as before, 245, and that gives me a factory price of 1,625 euros versus 1,325 euros before. Desired margin, 20% of rounded factory price, that gives me 325 of margin. Then Xworks, 1,950. Okay, versus what we saw before, Xworks 1,590. Okay, and you see that the marginal cost method gives me more competitiveness than 1,950, to which I add 255 of variable fees associated with delivery and customs fees, 255. FOB costs, then I have a FOB Lagos price of 2,325, to which I add the freight, 300, I add the insurance, 86, and I have CIF Barcelona price, 2,711 versus 2,340. And you see that the second scenario is actually less competitive than the first one, where I used the marginal cost method. Then the last method, foreign market price. This is a method that has to be combined actually with whatever method I use to calculate, because I have to take into consideration what is going on the foreign markets. Then here, foreign market price. Here, if I sell standard products, which means undifferentiated products that are similar to all the products that are being offered on the market, then I don't have any choice but to align with prices set by competitors. Then I've got to do the same thing as my competitors if I want my products to be bought by customers. Okay, otherwise, people, unless they perceive something that is not in the other products, are not going to buy my products. Then the piece of advice that I would give you here, try to differentiate your product so that you can set yourself apart from competition. Again, foreign market price means that you are going to align on the prices that are set by competition, and as well as on the what we call the psychic price. The psychic price is this price that your customers have in mind when they want to buy a product whose price they don't know. They are going to set a price psychologically in their minds, and whenever they know about the right price of the product, about the real price of the product, they're going to say this is very expensive or this is not expensive as compared to the price that they have set in their own minds. Then pricing strategies, it's not only about selecting the right method for calculating your price, you've got to select as well the right strategy. And we have 4 strategies, and here it has to do mainly with marketing. Then we said that we have accounting and finance considerations and as well marketing considerations. And this one is about marketing considerations. Then the first strategy is what we call the market penetration strategy. It means that you are going to set your price as low as possible. Okay. If you have a standard product that is not quite differentiated as compared to your competitors, by setting your price the lowest, you are going to reap more market share. Okay, you're going to get more products sold, and you're going to have a bigger market share. This is very important if customers are sensitive to prices on that market. If they are not, then forget about this method, because it works only for standardized products and only if customers or buyers are sensitive to prices. Otherwise, it won't work effectively. Second method is quite the opposite. It's what we call the skimming strategy. It means that you're going to skim the best of the market. You're going to set your prices at a level as high as possible as compared to your competitors, so that people can perceive them as being products of top quality. Then they're going to associate themselves with quality, with top quality. They're going to position your products at a high level, the highest possible, provided that product deserves to be top quality. Then if it is top quality, if it's certified, it's compliant with some standards, some important standards, the product when compared to competitors is better, and it creates more value to your customers. As we said before, if customers perceive the solution proposing to them as creating more value for them than the value created by products of your competitors, then you are going to position yourself at a level high enough, and you're going to set your prices at a level high enough to get the highest perception or the best perception in the market. Then an example that I take sometimes is the about the toothpaste. Okay, then if you're selling toothpaste, whether you're selling it in a drugstore or selling it in a hypermarket, it will not have the same value in the eyes of your customers. Then customers might find your product a product that is of top quality, a product that creates more value of them, and a product that is channeled or marketed through an appropriate distribution channel. Then skimming strategy is for high positioning on the market. The third strategy is what we call the fixed pricing strategy. Fixed pricing strategy is a strategy that is very simple to use because it replicates what is used on the local market. You have a fixed price for your products, and you're going to say to use the same price on all the markets you are selling your products on. Then the only thing you are going to add are the costs that are invoiced to you by your own freight forwarder, and that pertain to transportation and so on. Then X works, you are going to sell your products the same price at the local products. Okay, then the calculation that we did before, you're going to take into consideration all your costs, and you are going to have the same price X works as for the products that you sell locally. Then fixed pricing strategy, simple, no hassle, but it omits to take into consideration the specifics of each market. Then by selling at a lower price, you are going to find yourself devaluing your own product on that market. And sometimes the importers here are going to make up for that difference between the local price and the foreign market price by increasing their margin, their profit margin. Variable or flexible pricing strategy is an easy strategy as well to implement, but it's quite risky. It consists in selling products at different prices on different markets, and sometimes in different hypermarkets or different places. And the risk with this method is that some customers may find the product at a lower price somewhere else, and they will be upset. Then very risky strategy, because it applies different prices in something that you cannot justify to customers, okay, because it's not based on any specific calculation, on any costs that are incurred or anything. Then we have here a variety of methods and strategies, and how to choose the right one. And we have different criteria to choose the right strategy. The first one, you've got to know about your internal cost structure. Then the fixed prices, the variable prices, direct, indirect, and so on. Then and you've got also to know about your fixed costs that can be covered by sales in the domestic market, then to make you more competitive internationally. You've got to know about your production capacity so that you can calculate what would be your economies of scale if you increase your production, and so on. You've got to know about your competitors' prices, okay, so that you can align yourself accordingly if need be. You've got to know about your psychic price, then the price your customers have in their minds, so that you can align yourself. Purchasing power of foreign buyers, and how much can they afford to pay for your product, okay? And it's recommended not to take into consideration again the fixed prices to increase your competitiveness. Then the price construction, how to construct a good price export. You have different steps in the export pricing process. Then start by calculating the production cost of your products. Determine the marketing cost for export, how much it would cost you to market your products or foreign markets, and calculate the costs of adaptation to the target markets, which can include different things such as special permits if you have to ask for them, advertising, transportation and accommodation expenses, and so on. Then all expenses that pertain to exporting. Determine the delivery cost of the goods according to the negotiated Incoterms. Then ask your freight forwarder and your transporter to give you accurate prices for transportation, insurance, handling, and so on. Research competitor prices, then how much competitors apply on the market for their products. Research the buyer's psychic price, then that's the price that is expected by your buyers. Choose an appropriate pricing strategy depending on the positioning of your that you want to have, depending on the nature of your product, whether it's an differentiated product or a differentiated product, how much value it creates for your customers, and how customers value that value creation for them. Define a profit margin, okay, an average one, and set a base price, preferably in a stable currency, that would give you actually a kind of springboard to calculate for any Incoterm asked for by your buyer, and establish a pricing grid for the target market. And here, take into consideration as well the chosen Incoterm, because sometimes you've got to face some unforeseen costs, customs duties of the destination country, and payment terms, the chosen payment method, and sometimes you are going to be paid after a long period of time that you have to take into consideration when setting your price. Possible exchange rate fluctuations, whether you are then the currency that you have chosen for invoicing is prone to fluctuate negatively or positively, and so on. Then here a kind of checklist that you can use as well to go from the cost, the base cost price, to the final selling price in the foreign markets by taking into consideration depreciation, export, customs duties, and everything until your product arrives on the shelves of your distributors. As a conclusion, and I've selected 4 takeaway messages to keep in mind. And the right price is one of the key pillars of your success in foreign markets, and it has to be calculated according to your production cost, and as well according to the positioning, the short positioning on the foreign market. Then calculating and defining the right export price depends on the quality of the market and logistics information that you have. Then know as much as you can about the markets, about the competitors, about the P&Ds, and again, it stands for problems, needs, and desires of your customers, and how well your product answers to these P&Ds better than the products of your competitors. Calculate your export price in such a way that it can be offered under different Incoterms. Then if somebody asks you about a price, you've got to react quickly. Then responsiveness is something that is well appreciated in the market. Then if somebody sends you an inquiry about your products and the prices according to different Incoterms, you've got to be able to give them the information as quickly as possible. Unless opting for a skimming strategy, and only if the market is willing to pay a high price, don't account for fixed costs. Then allocate them entirely to products meant for the domestic market. Then Thank you very much. I was too long, and I tried to do my best to cover everything, not only in details. And if you have any questions, then thank you again for your patience and attention and time. And if you have any questions, please go ahead and make